Okay, looks like we're live on YouTube. I'm getting live on Instagram right now, running a bit late because I was in a debate, and I'm going to talk to you guys about it because it's hilarious and it's important. So let's get people live on Instagram. Oh wait, cancel. Let's cancel this. Hold on. Ending now. Delete. We're gonna go back. So I want a title. Live. Okay, I guess I can't have a title right now. I wanted to title this "Why You Mad, Bro?" on Instagram, but it is titled that on YouTube. We have one viewer on YouTube, and we are about to have lots of viewers on Instagram. But this is going to be a fun stream because we're going to just have we're going to talk about why this work makes everybody so pissed. And it honestly, it doesn't bother me at all. It's so fascinating to me. I really mean that. I'm not just saying that to sound like condescending or anything. Like, I really mean that. Like, I find it fascinating. Like, why is everybody so pissed at my work? And because they are so pissed. Why is there no data going to YouTube? Hopefully something happens. Let me see something. Okay. I don't know what's wrong with my connection. Oh, okay. It's higher than your recommended. Huh. I have power. Anyways, hopefully YouTube, figures it out. Spastic Eagle, sup? What's up? Have you seen the stream before, or are you somebody from Discord who I've been debating over the past couple hours? Because that would be awesome to have you here, actually, if you are one of those people. Just let me know in the chat. But we're going to talk about why this makes people so pissed. It's so consistent, too. It's funny because I have spoken to... what's up, BTC Bear? Is that Bitcoin Bear? I don't know if that's what that means, but maybe I'll call you Bitcoin Bear. If I'm wrong, tell me. But I'm streaming to YouTube, and you've been watching my live streams and learning a lot. Okay, that's cool. I got excited for a second. I thought you were somebody who was debating me on Discord. I'm involved in two Discord groups. Well, 3 really, but only 2 do I actually participate in really, and they are Discord groups related to Eric Weinstein's The Portal, and they are fascinating. They're filled with people with extremely high IQs, higher than mine, and who just study academic knowledge like machines. And I am not like that, really. I'll read... I memorized the Encyclopedia of Snakes as a kid, and then I memorized the Encyclopedia of Dogs, then I did the Encyclopedia of Birds, then I did fish, then I did, various bugs like arachnids and insects and such. But I wasn't ever somebody who just obsessed over mathematical details of molecular bonds. I failed chemistry. It was the first class I ever failed. And I do love this stuff when you can actually make sense of it. And the problem for me was with learning this in school is that you never actually made sense of any of it. Everything was always like, well, Watson and Crick discovered the double helix, and that's all you need to know about it, is that it's DNA structure. And, it's made of these. It's like, do you know why it's made of, adenine, thymine, and cytosine, and all these other, amino acids? Nope, never told. You're never explained why. Just told a bunch of out-of-context information, and you're expected to memorize it. And that, to me, seems useless. And it is useless. And that is exactly what I'm going to get at, is that these people in these discords specifically, but it's not just here, it's also on groups, on physics groups and stuff like that, on Facebook and things like that. Anywhere where there's a high number of people who value the fact that they're getting a PhD, they hate the work. The reason why is because it allows for people who didn't memorize all the out-of-context details in an academic environment to be able to cross over between fields that other people have held as their, something that defines them. It's like they're defined by their IQ. They're defined by their knowledge of out-of-context quantum physics information. Knowing versus doing, exactly, Paulina, exactly. And they hate the fact that I'm doing, because if they are trying to understand all these physics facts, I guess, then they're idol-worshipping the people and the work that has been done in the field in the past. But the reality is that the fact that they're only looking at what other people have done shows that they can't actually do anything new. And they hate that I am doing new things. And that doesn't mean they understand it, but they've got enough of a look to see that I'm not I don't want to say crazy person, because I don't like that term, but someone who hasn't actually been diligent. So I get a lot of people that message me and they're like, oh, I want to compare notes. And like I've said before, I appreciate it. I am always interested in looking at what you guys send me, and I do look, but I don't dive in deeply, and I don't want to compare notes privately under most circumstances, because it's important that this work be done from the perspective of first principles. And also because a lot of times people will be like, I've got it too, like you've got it and I've got it, and like, let's talk about it. And then I'll be like, send me what you have, but if you are interested in my work, like I'm very public about it. It's all on my website or my YouTube channel, and I live stream about it every night. You can come, we can talk about it in the chat. And then they'll be like, well, it's, early stages, but, here's the, it's only a paragraph or two right now, and they'll send me the paragraph or two, and like, it's clear that a lot of times these people, they did have, a moment of inspiration. They did see something that's true, that is also universal, so, which is awesome. It started for me like that. But the thing is like, I understand why that level of development is easy for people to dismiss who don't understand that those people actually did see something true and persistent. But it's not possible to dismiss my work as nonsense, or as not diligent, or as not thorough, or as not mathematically backed. There's more mathematical sorry, I got a notification. There's more mathematical evidence that I'm correct than there is that their worldview is correct. It's not even that their worldview is wrong. It's just that it's just subjective. Like, that's the problem, is they want to know the objective theory. But then, I said something today. It's very interesting, the arguments that get lobbed at you. And Eric Weinstein said this once to me in a private, less semi-private, like Discord conversation. There was lots of people listening, but somebody had said, they were like, oh, Eric, people were threatened by your theory because it meant that their theory was wrong, and I stopped them. So I can't help myself. I try not to say things in these conversations, but then people are so trapped that they don't see anything objectively relevant. So I have to butt in. Can't help myself. But so I butted in and I was like, no, that's not even it. I was like, they're not worried that they're wrong. What they are subconsciously worried about, even if they're not consciously aware of it, is that the guy who but accurately describes in detail and defines and contextualizes any universal pattern, objective pattern, will be able to make predictions across fields that the people in the fields would never have been able to make. If you're a biologist and you've studied humans for so long, let's say you're not you're a biologist, but you're specialized in hominids, okay, and you're just so involved in the field, and then some guy comes along and is like, yeah, I predict that there's two races of humans, and they're defined by a single difference in behavioral nature, and not by the way that they look, and that these are the two objective races of humanity, and this is coming out of nowhere to them, and they're like, yeah, this guy's this is nonsense. But then when they look and they see that this, somebody who says that, me, has an enormous amount of work behind their their statements, even if they don't understand the statements, they can't handle that, because it's interesting, mathematically, and I reference a few people, I reference Chris Langan, I reference Eric Weinstein, I reference Clearwin and Garrett Lisi, more than other people, and also Wolfram, because they are the most involved in the field as well. And I think it's, like I've said before, I think it's important that I discuss their work, because they don't discuss each other's work, which is really... It's just they're hoping that if they don't say someone else, you won't look, so that you're only looking at them, so that their theory is the only one that's even they're decreasing. The strategy is to decrease competition. So that's what they're doing. That's why you never heard Eric Weinstein mention Clear when he mentions Garrett Lisi, but he doesn't mention Clearwin. And Clearwin doesn't mention Eric Weinstein. It's because they're hoping you don't look at each other. And but I'm going to tell you about all of them, because I want you to look at all of them. But Eric has said before that the square root is fascinating mathematical structure, because what it does is it allows you to predict information in a system from outside the system. So I don't study human DNA lineages, but I'm telling you that there's two races. It's I'm predicting a structure. They want to be in the cool kids club and get the lollipops. Yes, they do. They love being in the cool kids clubs and getting the lollipops. These are the people, these are the nerdy kids at school. And I was the nerdiest kid at school, so I'm not criticizing, that. But these are the kids that didn't sit at the cool kids table, which I didn't sit at the cool kids table. And then when they get older, they're able to sit at the cool kids table, and by claiming that they understand quantum physics and, flashing their PhDs, cop badges. And then I come in, though, somebody like me, and just wrecks it. And they can tolerate people more so who are like Garrett Lisi and Eric and even Stephen Wolfram and even Clearwin, because all these people have PhDs in mathematics or physics. And I don't have a PhD at all. I thought about going back and getting a PhD in philosophy, because it would be ridiculously easy for me to do it, but it would still be a lot of work, and I will eventually contact my philosophy professor from college and tell him about this work, because it's monumental, but but I don't think I need to go back and get a PhD. I mean, we'll see. But if I did, it would only be for the sake of optics. And I don't, that's a lie. You know, that's false credentials. And I don't believe in that. This guy in the Discord group right before, and I want to like show you the conversations, but I'll read some of them to you. I'm not going to show you because they are kind of semi-private groups, and I'll respect that. But this guy was like, listen, he was really rude to me, and I was like, you know, it's fascinating that, because I had said, he was like, what do you predict? And I was like, what do I predict? I predict all of these things. And I mentioned like 2 races in humanity. And he was like, 2 races? What are the 2 races? And I started explaining the context. And within 30 seconds, he went from, I want to know, to, you know what? I don't want to know. I'm out. Peace. And I was like, peace. See ya. Like, and I stopped middle of explaining because I have no desire to prove myself to anybody. And the work will speak for itself. And more so than any other work, it's Sentient Singularity Theory, guys. It speaks for itself. And I just was like, okay, see ya. And then I commented, though, I said, you know, it's fascinating that every single time that this happens, and people realize that I'm onto something and that I'm not easily dismissible as a crazy person, but I am rocking their worldviews and their, you know, cornerstone beliefs, that they get either extremely dismissive and they'll be like, you know what, I'm out, or they're openly hostile, but hostile in a way that's nonsensical. They'll be like, you know, well, if you don't know what, you know, why a water molecule is bent, then you're not worth my time. It's like, dude, just give me time. I will figure out more why a water molecule is bent than you even know why a water molecule is bent. But I'm 5 years into this, a theory that transcends all fields. Like, you have to give this some time. And, but I said, you know, it's mathematically impossible at this point to be sensical and dismiss all of these mathematical coincidences as irrelevant in my work. And I won't say random because there's no such thing as randomness, but I'll say irrelevant. There's not even such thing as irrelevance, but less relevant. And they were starting to see that, especially with, you know, the creation of my website really, like, just brings it up like another level as far as like showing the summation of all of these all of this work. Not just like, this is one model, here's another model, here's another model, and hopefully you can put them together. But that's or hopefully you're willing to watch 3 hours. It's like, that's for the diehards. And but the website, it really helps people kind of get a glimpse and realize that this is serious. It's not somebody who's like, guys, I figured it out. The objective structure is this. Hi, Jeff. How's it going? And but in reality, they saw like just a piece, and that's profound. Piece leads to more, but that's not. You didn't figure it out. You got a glimpse, which is not the same as defining and transcribing and describing, which you have to do. That takes an enormous amount of work. And but this guy these 2 guys went from being fascinated to, like, one of them was like, I'm out, and the other one's like, yeah, actually I gotta go. It's like literally right about to be like, this is the 2 races. They were like, right before that, they were like, I'm out. You know, what the heck are you talking about, naked mole rats? And I didn't even finish. I was like, okay, that's fine. Peace. But I told them, I was like, you guys subconsciously realize that, like, I'm tough to dismiss, and you're threatened by the fact that I might be able to hop between fields. And this is exactly what I told Eric. It said in that conversation with Eric, I was like, what everybody is scared of subconsciously is that the guy who figures it out can go from biology and tell you some things that the biologist could never tell you, could go to engineering and tell the engineers things that they could never tell you, could go to politics and tell people that, you know, political philosophers could never tell you, because you are able to look at every single one of these subjective fields from an objective perspective, which nobody has had yet. And you are able to predict information from outside the system. you're able to predict information that's within the system from outside the system. It's the square root. And look, my whole thing starts from 4 primary perspectives, which is a square. And then it goes to 9 because it's a square. It's the next square. 4. Then the next square is 9. The square root is the root. It's super literal, guys. It's super literal. Eric Weinstein was right, but like you don't need to just think about it mathematically the way that everybody else does. It's like super literal. Why does it start at 4 and then jump to 9? Because each one is a square. It's the square root. Then look at the universe model that I have. It's a square from at least one perspective. It's also, it's a square singularity. It's squares multiplicity. It's a DNA double helix. It's a wave. It's a particle. It's a collection of particles. It's all these things, but at the root is a square. And because it's a square root, it's super literal. And but they're so threatened by this because they don't even understand why. They have no idea what's going on, because it's like somebody's coming in from the outside with all this information that they shouldn't be able to predict because they're only looking at a field from the inside, and they don't even realize that there's this other perspective to look at it from, and it's breaking their cohesiveness. And so, but this guy, these people were just making no sense. And there's this one guy, he's an engineer at Tesla, brilliant, and he's one of the most brilliant people on the Discords that I'm on, and he loves to just flaunt his carefree attitude and his extraordinary intelligence. And it's actually funny. And once he said to me, he's like, listen, I am really high right now. He's like, I've been smoking a ton of weed and I'm talking to you now about your theory. And he's like, and you know what's the worst part? And I was like, what? And he was like, that I'm so much better than you and I know it. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah, he's like, people shouldn't even feel this much better than other people. And I was like, dude, they probably shouldn't feel that much better than other people because you aren't that much better than other people. And I was like, he goes through this whole spiel about how he's so much better than me. And he doesn't do this to most people, even though he is very cocky. But that's fine, I'm fine with confidence, but there's a difference between confidence and being like, if you don't know why a water molecule's bent, then get out of my face. Shoot, peasant. And but I let him get his spiel out. I think it's hilarious because I can deal with all of this. You have to be able to deal with all this if you're going to be the person that brings this stuff forward. You can't let it get to you at all. It can't even not get to you. It has to be entertaining. Otherwise, you just can't deal with it. It's too much. And I let him get it all out, and I was like, you know what? He was like, what? And I was like, you have a higher IQ than me, and you're older than me, and you've studied way more than me, but I'm going to prove you completely wrong. And I was like, and that is going to suck for you. And I just spun it back around on him because it was funny. But I also didn't say I'm so much better than you. And that's important because I don't think that I'm so much better than him. Like I said before, the best philosophers know that if perspective is fundamental, then it's perspective that gives us our most valuable abilities. And if that's the case, then you can't be better than somebody because you have, a perspective that they don't have. You're not responsible for that, and it's also not attributable to working hard or IQ or anything else. It's this is just, you can think it's luck. It's not luck. It's a gift from God, but it's not your doing. So I'm not going to say I'm so much better than him, but I am going to break his worldview. But this guy, and the very last thing that I said before the stream was, this guy was like, listen, I'm sorry that I was rude, because I chewed him out a little bit, but I was laughing at the same time. And they responded, they were like, I'm sorry I was rude, but let me be clear. You are not going to revolutionize anything, is what the guy said to me. Literally, he's like, you are not going to revolutionize any fields. And I just was like, watch me. And that's basically what I said, and then I jumped on the stream. And now we're going to talk about why you mad, bro? Because they're so pissed. And I have such a good attitude about it, and I'm so polite, and on these like chats, because if it was Paulina, my fiance, who said this to me, and she read it in a book, and I don't know which book, but it's an important book. It's popular, whatever it is, and it's be impeccable with your word. And nobody is entirely impeccable with their word, but it's important that we do try to be, because word is like the word is the precursor to action. It's like, make sure that what you're saying, if it did end up resulting in physical changes in our perceived reality, you would want those changes to be good. But you have to say what you believe is true, and be honest. And if you're confident, then be honestly confident. And you can, defend yourself. And you can even, let him have it. Be like, watch me. That's not mean. But be impeccable with your word. Don't be like, I don't know. Like, don't take things personally on the internet. Like, these people don't know you. So I'm going to get to some questions, because I know I have lots of questions that have come in already. But I wanted to set the context of what we're going to discuss. And it is, why are these people so mad? And how is the best way to respond? And hopefully some of them are watching this. I might even get on there and be like, I'm streaming about why you guys are so pissed. But, we'll see. Maybe I'll do that. But that would be good, because then at that point I'm not just text. It is important that you see somebody's face and hear their voice and realize that, like, okay, not only is this person like a little bit likable, but also, if you're not an authority figure to me, who I don't perceive as a worthy authority figure, then I do think I'm like fairly likable. It doesn't mean like I'm cool to everyone, because I'm definitely not, but I'm also not mean, so like it's hard to, for the most part, I try not to be mean. I used to be like really mean on social media because I was very angry, but I got over it. You went live with Goldstein once, right? Would you say you agree with most of his theories? Yeah, I do agree with most of his theories. His staff flagged that video as a copyright violation, and then it was taken down by YouTube. And when I asked him to, if he would fix it, I was like, I will take down the video if you don't want it up, but please retract the copyright strike. And he said he'll take care of it, and then, he didn't. Or he did tell his staff, I know that, because he was like, I told my staff about it. And I was like, okay, thank you. And then his staff never got back to me. His staff never followed up, or somebody at YouTube dropped the ball, or his staff dropped the ball. But when I asked him about it later on, and I was like, listen, can I repost the video with your permission? And he never got back to me. I think he's worried. Everybody's worried about associations. I am somebody that talks a lot about God, and I went on Owen Benjamin's stream, and I will talk to anybody about anything. And I also don't dismiss scripture. So, to acknowledge somebody's legitimacy if you're in the scientific world, and that person, believes that there's something to scripture, that there's truth in scripture, and that there's also, God, and also they, go on, live streams with people who have slanderous Wikipedia articles, then, I understand why people are careful. But I will message him again and ask him to take down the copyright strike. But yeah, I agree with most of his theories. But he said that in proto-space-time, there's something that's almost sentient but not quite sentient, which means like beyond creation. I totally disagree with that. God is absolutely sentient, and sentience is eternal. And it wasn't almost sentient. It is. God is sentient beyond creation. That is a fundamental difference. And I think that my name of my theory is more accurate to a universal theory, like a total theory of not just creation, but the cause of creation and the nature of that cause, which is a sentient, feeling, thinking being. I've been watching your live streams, learning a lot. Awesome. The barrier to entry for truth is introspection. Exactly, John. If your name is John. Joanne. I don't know your name. It looks like it's Johanzeiz. I don't know what that is. But I'm guessing it's like a combination of like your first and last name or something. But yeah, barrier for entry to truth is introspection. That's absolutely true. That's how I did this work. I was like, I want to understand AI. I need to understand intelligence. Let me try and map my intelligence, and then the rest is history. They want to be in the Cool Kids Club. You guys want to try some truth? First hits free. Trust me, I got a PhD. This is good stuff. That's hilarious. It took them 350 years to apologize to Copernicus. I don't even know what I don't remember what Copernicus said, but I do remember him like beating the previous narrative at least. And like they sentenced him to death, and I think, or like locked him in prison, something like that. I forgot from school. Website looks great. Thank you. I'm really glad it does, because it's costing a lot. Because I tried to do it with WordPress, and to be honest, it just wasn't intuitive for me, and I didn't have time to like learn how to do it all, because I wanted to start streaming, and I knew that it was essential that I had a website where I could be like, if you want details on my work, go look there, and also where I could publish to without it being taken down, and that was an aggregator of all of my media and stuff like that, and just gave it. It is clear it's becoming harder for these people in these groups to dismiss me because of my website. Before, it was a collection of various models that they didn't know how they were linked. Now, like, the website is starting to show how much work I've actually done, and also how much it's similar to what is emerging as the leading candidate for the next theory of physics, which is geometric unity. The use to the sales pitch is not the truth. Yeah, that's true. That's why imagination is so important. Yes, exactly why imagination is so important, because introspection is essential. This idea of like being able to take an objective like pattern and apply it to a bunch of different fields where the pattern didn't come from, it takes imagination. The square root is imagination. It allows you to imagine information into a system that is outside of the system that is calculating the information. Creative love, yes. Low emotional intelligence. Yes, but it's not even just low emotional intelligence. It's that. And I am guilty of this before I was somebody who was really aware of God, or of the sentience of existence, I guess you could say. I defined myself by my intelligence, which is stupid because there's always somebody smarter than you, like more intelligent. There's always somebody who's read more. There's always somebody that's, has a higher IQ. There's always somebody that's gotten better grades. It's like, don't define yourself by relativity. Define yourself by objectivity, which is, what are you? Oh, you're a piece of the sentient, existence that created all of things that have been created for a specific reason? That sounds way better than like oh yeah, my self-worth comes from my ability to memorize out of context information and the fact that I tested on some test, this number. Stupid. And I'm guilty of it, so I'm not blaming them. What an ass, he's vetting you. Yes, they are vetting me in their disagreeableness or their blind rejection is validating. This is kind of like Jesus and the Jews. It's like, is he the Messiah? Oh, maybe the fact that he was so widely rejected as such at the time is kind of actually evident. Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. That's not part of this theory. That's just my own ideas on theology. Because God is humble. God is humble. Don't not be. The book is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Yes, that is it. That's the book that Paulina was referencing. There were more. There was be impeccable with your word, and others. But be impeccable with your word, I think sums up the rest. It's how oneness sums up separateness inside and outside in some ways. I'm glad I knew somebody was going to know the book. You're responding pretty good. Just don't let their disbelief injure you. It's not going to injure me. Do not worry. Do you know what they've done? They've kicked me out of the physics groups multiple times, and I've fought to get back in just because, I just fight, for what I think is right. I wasn't rude, so, and I wasn't obnoxious, and if I'm not rude, I'm not obnoxious, and I present work, you can think it's false, but, why are you kicking me out? Lots of people make claims in there that might be false all the time. They don't get banned. But it's because there's something different about me. And not about me, about my work. It's important to kind of separate them. But there's something different about my work than everybody else's work. And other than, when Eric was discussing the reaction to his PhD thesis, it was exactly like what I have experienced. I told him that. I was like, yo, your community treats me the exact same way as everybody treated you when you unveiled your math thesis, and what that shows me is that none of them actually understand your theory at all. Even if they've memorized the mathematics, they don't understand the implications. Obviously, he didn't answer me because you can't do that. I mean, anything that if anybody like that ever did answer me, I would keep. There are things that have been said by people that I know, behind closed doors, who run PragerU, and I've seen people vulnerable who are the leaders of a lot of these narratives, including even, I've seen Eric say things that I don't talk about because he's never really referenced them publicly and regarding certain things about physics. And I don't say them, but I do agree with them, and I'll talk about my beliefs. And they line up very much so. But I'm not going to mention that was his belief, because for some reason he hasn't said some of those things publicly. But you got to let people play out their strategies. That's fine. But don't worry about them injuring me. I love the challenge, guys. I'd be so bored if they were just taking my work. Are you familiar with Robert Edward Grant's work? Yes, I'm very familiar with his work. I speak to Robert Edward Grant fairly regularly, and we've talked about certain things in depth, privately before, and we're very much in agreement about a lot of things. And he does incredible work. I've done a ton of work. When I look back at how much work I've done over the past 4 or 5 years on this, it kind of blows my mind. But it's that whole thing of you overestimate how much you can get done in a day, you underestimate how much you can get done in a year. Project that for 5 years, and you can get a lot done. But Robert Edward Grant, he's been at it quite a bit longer than me, but he gets done work. The thing that blows my mind about his work is it's all drawn, which takes way more time than like Excel. Excel is super fast, and he can do things that I can't, and I can do things, that he can't. And he does know how to use Excel. Like, I'm not saying he doesn't, but it's just not the medium that he normally like works in. He works in drawing, and it does things that Excel can't do. But what it blows my mind is that it seems to me, at least, that drawing those structures that he draws would take a long time, just because drawing takes time. Whereas like I can just copy and paste a model and then tweak it. I can copy paste it 10 times and then do different tweaks for each one and see what happens. Like, every time he wants to kind of like alter structure, he has to redraw it would seem, and like he gets done so much it blows my mind. I don't know how he doesn't. I'm impressed. I know you say it's binary, not a trinity. What about 3 being the first number to make a whole shape? Yeah, that's true. It's the totality. There's a difference between, in physics, the general narrative right now is that a dimension is a degree of freedom. It's an ability to maneuver, and it's not a when I was speaking to Eric in that live stream that got flagged, that somebody had mentioned here, this is where we did disagree, and it was right in the very beginning. And I was like, and I didn't talk about my work at the time. I'm sure he's aware of it now, but like I didn't discuss it because I wanted to know about his. It's not my time that's like super valuable in that circumstance, because you got to recognize a disproportionate interest, I guess, like by the outside world. And so I'm very appreciative when somebody who their time is valuable to a lot of people gives you a minute, let them speak. And so, I said, I was like asking him about dimensions, and I was like, if a dimension is a perspective, and he was like, it's not a perspective, it's a degree of freedom. And he's like, it's a space in which you can move. This is actually wrong, but it's also right. It's a superposition, because a dimension is actually, we have to define it. We haven't really defined it, because we kind of use it to describe, we call it a degree of freedom, but it's actually, we use it in instances where we're describing constraints instead of degrees of freedom. So we have to like realize that there is a binary to this triality, and that there's 2 degrees of freedom to move, and there's one intrinsic constraint that they're reflecting across. And these 3 form the pattern of triality. And then, like I said, it all starts from 4 though, and the 4th one is an extrinsic constraint, which an intrinsic constraint is created by your own structure. So like you can go forwards, you can go backwards, but you can't move within your current location, because you always are in your current location. You can't escape the current location. Try moving beyond your current location. You can't, because you are always in the current location. It's like try escaping the present moment. You can't. You're always in the present moment. But this leads to things that we call dimensions, but it's actually a perspective. And then also degrees of freedom lead to perspectives. So there's a perspective that you gain by going forward. There's a perspective that you gain by going backwards. There's a perspective that you also always have that is what forwards and backwards are reflecting across, which is your current location or your present moment. And then there's this other one that is exterior, which is caused by the constraint of being inside of another being, and that is an extrinsic constraint. So our extrinsic constraint is what we call time, because we have no control over it, and it's caused by the fact that we're inside of the universe. But then our degrees of freedom are in space, and in relativity it's up, down, to the side. It's like the XYZ axis, or it's length, width, height when it comes to like observation. But the reality is that when you're getting outside of relativity, which is the goal, then it's actually the spatial dimensions are actually 2 degrees of freedom, which is forwards and backwards, and also then one intrinsic constraint, which is your current location, which now you're at the center of the system, so it's not defined by what's observed around you. It's like you're not defined by, I don't know, that dresser over there. The dresser is defined by you. And so we right now, though, define our perspectives based on the dresser as the starting point. But if you want to escape relativity and get into objectivity, then you have to put you yourself as the reference point. That's why, like internal reflection is like the key forward, and not going out. That's why I think that it's very cool that Elon Musk like launched and landed his rocket today, but it's just cool. It's like we're not going to. He was like, well, if we go out into the universe, then we'll be able to understand it. We'll be able to learn more about the universe. No, you won't. You need to go inward in order to understand the universe. You don't go outward. Going outward is just cool, but it's not. It doesn't help you understand the fundamental natures of the universe because you can go from here to Mars. It doesn't. Have you heard of Russell J. Gould's work with quantum grammar constructs? Somebody messaged me about that once in the chat, in my private messages, and but I did, like I said, I don't look deeply at any of this stuff. I'll like glance at it enough to see that I can see that there's something there that's similar to structures that I see, and then I'll just look away because I don't need it. But yeah, somebody messaged me, and quantum grammar constructs and his triangular-based periodic table of elements, that I'm interested in because I actually spoke to Robert Edward Grant a bit about like how we need a new periodic table that makes sense. Like our current one doesn't make sense. There's no observable, consistent, universal pattern, and his is based on like intersecting waves. And I think that his is way more beautiful and it's closer to correct than our current one. But I will look into that. I'm gonna look right now. Gould triangular periodic table. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Because I would predict it would be triangular. Interesting. Yeah, this is 100% more accurate than our current model. I don't even need to like understand it deeper in order to say that. Look at my universe model and then look at this, and you'll be like, that kind of looks similar. It's because it is. It's just mine is a triangle this way and a triangle this way because it's spinning inside out and outside in at the same time. Is what you're seeing. It's us looking out at the universe and the universe looking in at us. And this isn't. It's not an inside-outside look. It's just, looking at the elements. So you're going to see a triangle instead of a square, instead of opposing triangles. Yeah, this looks great. I will maybe look more into this because I have kind of like looked at my own models and been like, how can I apply my universe model and my objective structure that I've found to the periodic table and find like a more accurate one. And like I said, so far, the only other one that's interesting that I've seen is Robert Edward Grant's. But this one also looks interesting. This guy figured some stuff out, for sure. But I'm still going to try and figure out a different one. I'll send you a link. You don't have to. I just looked it up. But thank you. You can send me a link if you want, but I'm looking at it right now. And for those of you who can't see it, let's show the world what we're looking at. This is it. So, like, this is apparently Gould's triangular periodic table of elements. I need to look more at it to like really, dive deeply into understanding it. But, you can see that there is a chirality to it, which means it's an asymmetrical model. And the observation of asymmetry is due to when you look at something in subjectivity or in relativity, the fact that the universe is spinning basically gives it directionality, and directionality causes the subjective view of what's called chirality. I mean, that's not like something that they say in physics, but I know that that's true. Maybe it's something they say in physics, but I just know that it's true because I can see it. And but when you look at something objectively, it is symmetrical, but subjectively, it's asymmetrical like this. That's because the universe is spinning, and it's caused by that. So the fact that his is asymmetrical like that makes sense. And then I'll look at things like this. I'll be like, okay, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I won't even look at these letters because it doesn't matter. Quantities are how you can tell whether or not something is an objective structure. And he goes 1, 2, 3. That makes sense. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That makes sense. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Interesting. That does also make sense. This is pretty good. I need to look more at it to understand more of it, but yeah. This makes sense. This is 100% better than our current model. I don't understand how we ended up with the ugliest model of the periodic table of elements to exist. It's so hideous. There's no rhyme or reason to it. They'll be like, yeah, actually over here are the noble gases, and over here are the alkaline metals. And it's like, that's subjective. Somebody was just like, oh, we'll put these over here, and yeah, it follows the atomic number to some degree, but it's just such a relativistic model, and it, like I said, we're trapped in relativity. This is much more objective. This is beautiful. And I was on here earlier, this week and last week, and we were discussing the different races and different sexualities, and how there's only two sexualities in objectivity, and or two sexual orientations and two races in objectivity, not what we think of. And how this is actually beautiful, because what you do is you discover that these are actually complementary, and they form a marriage with each other. They require each other, and it gives everybody meaning. It's just beautiful. And when you look at structures like this, it's beautiful. And there's that debate in physics of in math, it's if it's beautiful, it's correct. And then you have people like Sabine Hassenfelder, who's honestly, women are never going to understand the theory of everything the way that men are. They're just not. It's just it's because they are part of the subjective structure and they can't escape it. And men can, but it's not because, women are dumb or anything. They're not dumb at all. It's just they're too connected to back up. Penrose said, seeing the objective consciousness structure is essentially requires a stepping back, is what he said. And that's true. But it's really about contemplating yourself within your own mind, within your own self. So it's about imagining yourself within yourself, and or looking at yourself in the mirror. But the mirror that you're looking at yourself in is your own mind. And then, but women can't do this. This is why they lack self-awareness as compared to men. But men lack awareness of other beings, which is why they suck at taking care of people, and it's also why they can commit some horrible atrocities and not feel a thing, and why they're so much more violent. It's because they're not aware of others, they're just aware of themselves. Women are not aware of themselves, but just aware of others. This is also true of the left and right in politics. The left is aware of everyone, but it's totally lacking in self-awareness. The right is totally self-aware, but it doesn't understand or see others outside of itself. It's just masculine versus feminine perspectives. But you need to be able to back up. or see yourself in the mirror, or self-contemplate yourself in order to see the objective structure, which means you need to be able to detach. And like, you can't do something like this without being able to detach. So women will never come up with a theory of everything. That's why Sabine Hossenfelder's like making songs about how like these theories of everything is all about men. We can watch one actually here. This is who I'm talking about, by the way, for those of you. And like, she's very intelligent, knows things about physics that I don't. Like, she sings. It's very fun. I admire this woman's like just bravery, but and she's clearly intelligent. But like, she's the type of person that you would want to help you come up with an experiment to test a specific thing. But she's never going to be the person that comes up with the theory that predicts the thing that you're going to test.
Catchy tune, and that's entirely.
Okay, so she made this song.
It's taken me some time because my brain is really small, but now I understand. Some people can explain it all. You and me, the universe, and everything so far. They got theories, and shame on you if you don't faint in all. They have come to save the world. They have come to help, and all of them can do my job better than myself. All you guys with theories of everything.
This is hilarious.
Follow me wherever I'm traveling.
I'm gonna give her a thumbs up.
Your theories I need.
I gave her a like.
Succeed, but please don't send them to me.
I've never sent her my theory.
Truly famous case. This Garrett last name Lacey. He's rooting for E8, but otherwise he takes life easy. Then there's Every0ne staff who think the world's a hypergraph. A million brilliant opinions are lingering in my inbox. They all come from men.
They all come from men. She's right.
Each and every one of them is my biggest fan. All you guys with theories of everything.
It's catchy.
Oh, follow me wherever I'm traveling.
So funny.
Theories I need. I hope they will succeed, but please don't send them to me.
Okay, so this woman is hilarious, and she's also right. And this is important to know. You know, a lot of people like get insulted by this song. This is not something to be insulted by. This is hilarious. This, like,
Now let me mention
let's just let her
Eric
finish.
because he asked
Yeah,
for it.
they're Eric Weinstein.
Time with the W, that's someone to forget. Geometric unity is what he calls his theory, and not ideally he thinks really everybody needs to hear it. What's it good for at last? I've been told I'm not supposed to ask. All you guys with theories
I love this line.
follow me wherever I'm traveling. Your theories I need. I hope they will succeed, but please don't send them to me.
So we won't. We will never send her my theory. Please don't send it to her. She won't get it. But it's not because she's not intelligent. She's very intelligent. Clearly, like, honest, I'm not even joking. That took talent. And it's also true. She's right. All these theories come from men. And there's a reason for it. And it's not because men are egotistical and think that they're they can do it or anything. It's because we're able to detach and look at the big picture. If you're going to be the bee that flies around the vine and pollinates every flower, you need to be able to detach from the vine and fly around and see everything from a bird's eye view. But if you are the flower attached to the vine, you can't detach from the vine. And that means you'll never see the vine in its totality. This is the problem with women when it comes to theories of everything. It's also, there is this in the Gospels, I think, like in the New Testament, there's this part where this woman is like, wants to be, leading the church in some way and be, be prophesizing and all kinds of stuff. I forgot exactly the details, but one of the disciples of Jesus was like, in reference to the fact that she was a woman, he was like, "Did you write the Bible?" And he asks her that. And what he's really asking her is, did women write the Bible? No, they didn't. And the Bible is a theory of everything. It's a theory of everything. You might not agree with it, but like, it's certainly a theory of everything. It's obviously a theory of everything. And it was written by men. And so is geometric unity, and so is E8, and so is emergence theory, and so is hypergraph, computational universe, and so is CTMU. It's all by men. Sabine is right, and she doesn't know why, but my theory will tell you why. And I'm going to read something that I wrote once, and it explains just like why the feminine perspective isn't able to do this, why women can't do it, why men are the only ones that can do it. I'll show you that because the image you showed is actually someone's triangular periodic table. Gould had help creating his periodic table, not sure who though. He has also created a table of monoatom atomics. That's cool. I will look more into it. Deliberate description of the elements. It's like Japanese multiplication. It is like Japanese multiplication. I saw a video on Instagram and I shared it and I was like, this is cool. They totally did the lines and did the lines this way and then they were able to count. I was like, that's some theory of everything type of shit right there. Tinfoil hat wars this joint. That's cool. Good. Welcome. This is the place for people like us who get it but are not got. But, okay, the image you showed, okay, yeah, I already said that. When you say it's a binary but not a trinity, yeah, okay, I got there already. All right. Truth, we complement each other. Yes, women and men complement each other. We each have our own strengths. This is true of the two races as well. It's beautiful. It's like, she's the one, this woman, Sabine, who sang the song, said that beauty is leading people astray, and I said, this is kind of like, I was pretty happy with the statement because it was just one of those things that came to me perfectly in the moment, and it was so true, and I responded to her on Twitter. And this other guy really liked it, but she never said anything, but I wasn't expecting her to. I was just, it was for the sake of the men watching. And I was like, it's not that beauty is leading people in math and physics astray. It's that people don't understand the difference between beauty and hotness today. And that is something that is true in every field, including physics and math. And it's true. And, what a lot of people think is beautiful, even in mathematics, and I'll tell you the difference between beauty and hotness, is a lot of times it's not beautiful, it's actually hot. It's sexy. That's what I said. It's people, we don't understand the difference between sexiness and hot and beauty. What is sexy is that which is beautiful in the moment, subjectively. But it fades and it falls out of fashion, it falls out of style, or it, ages. This is true in people, this is true in fashion. It's true. Look at it everywhere. But beauty is eternal. And beauty never leads you astray. Because the truth is the most beautiful, of all. But the problem is that we're stuck in relativity. And when you're stuck in relativity, you start confusing sexiness with beautiful. And, then it leads to societal problems where people are getting too much plastic surgery. Everybody's laughing. Good. I'm glad you think this is funny. It is funny. It's true. Hotness is ego and beautiful is soul. That's exactly right, Jeff. That's exactly right. Perfect. The soul is the eternal, underlying structure that links everyone, everywhere and forever. But hotness is like, yeah, it's your ego. It's that like isolation. And there's, not saying things aren't sexy or hot. They certainly are, but choose beauty over sexiness and hotness, because, if you choose that, speaking to the men, like, if you choose that girl who is just, wearing the sexiest clothes and like just, provocative but very sexy, that in 20, remember that you also have to be with that person in 20 years if you're going to actually, uphold your responsibilities that Sentient Singularity Theory implies, not just implies, that it shows that you have to pursue, which is marriage, lifetime commitment. And but if you're not looking for that, then you're going to pursue sexiness. That will fade in 20 years. But beauty, people who are beautiful when they are 25 are just as beautiful when they're 85. They're not as sexy, but they are just as beautiful. So choose beauty. In physics, in math, and, in women. So, see YouTube and see what kind of... Guys, I love Sabine's song. It's so good. It's so true. I really love it. It's not just like making me laugh out of irony. I'm just like, she's lacking self-awareness. She doesn't realize like how deep some of the concepts that she conveyed go, but it's there. Reminds me of the Miracle on 34th Street Christmas movie when Santa sends kids from Macy's to other stores. Ends up being the best strategy because it was just about Macy's. I think I see what you're saying. I think I've seen that, but like not for like 15 years. I don't know. Maybe not. My comment was referring to Tyler talking about others' work and promoting others instead of being only about himself. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Cool. Yeah, I mean, guys, like, I think I found everybody's work in my work and also discovered, and described things more accurately, certain things more accurately, more universally. But I found, other people's structures in my, like the structures that are the key components of other people's theories in my work, and I'm not going to dismiss their work. We all can win. But Sentient Singularity Theory is the name of the theory. That is the total theory. Even if it contains geometric unity, even if it contains E8's exceptionally simple theory, even if it contains emergence theory, which I think it does, but it contains them, which means it's the objective. It contains relativity. It contains the double helix. It's not separate from them. They're inside it. They're not competing. But if they think theirs is the ultimate theory, then they'll see it as competing, but it's not competing. Like, it's inevitable that Sentient Singularity Theory is the objective and that everything else is contained within it. It's inevitable. It's not even like, I bet anything on it. Like I said, Eric Weinstein bet his house on geometric unity on Brian Keating's podcast, Into the Impossible. And I will bet my life on Sentient Singularity Theory. Is Eric said, is his critics prepared to bet their house? Because he is. I don't know. Are you guys prepared to bet your life? Because I am. I really mean that. I mean, if I believe that it implies God, like, obviously I'm going to bet my life on it. You have to. If your theory is that God is like the center and the primal structure and the structure that we're all reflections of, and the, cause and constraint of any universal pattern, then like if that's universal, then you have to bet your life on it. It's like I'm not just betting my life on an unconscious algorithm, betting my life on a sentient being. It's different. There's not really such thing as coincidence either. Yeah, there's no such thing as, there's coincidence, but there's no such thing as irrelevant coincidence. If you think about the word coincidence, there is that. But I get what you're saying. The way that we use the term coincidence, meaning meaningless randomness, this is the same thing, my issue with like the E word, or like esoteric, is the way that we use it is to imply a concept that doesn't actually exist. Same exact thing with the way that we use the word coincidence. Same exact thing with the way that we use nothingness when you're talking about objectivity, it doesn't exist. Same exact thing with magic. It's either all magic or there's no magic. Same exact thing with religion versus science. It's like there is a difference between the scientific method and, channeled scripture. But like, what is religion and what is science? They're just both, the way that we use them outside of, describing science as a method and religion as, a scripturally inspired tradition, then they're both just ways of saying, they're substitutes for the word truth, and science saying, oh, I don't believe in religion, I believe in science. It's like you're just trying to one up, religion by saying that. And then it's funny because once I kind of was in college and I was like, said something about aliens, and my friend who was, raised Roman Catholic was like, I don't believe in aliens. And I was like, you don't believe in aliens? Don't you believe in like biology? Even though I think there's evidence of beings out there, but I don't think that it's obvious either. And, but I was like mocking the person. And then she, to try and one up me, was like, I don't believe in that. I believe in religion. I was like, now I look back and I'm like, we're both so stupid. Scripture is actually divinely inspired. You can see that in the math. And it's the Torah is a mathematical matrix. Whether or not you believe it was created by the most genius human that ever lived, or whether or not you believe that it was, created by God and transcribed by a man, it has to be one or the other, because the math in that is just beyond even like anything I do. Well, not everything I do, but like it's just so much that it's beyond, my smaller models. And science is just a method. I like getting high and listening to you. Good, Bitcoin Bear. That's fine. So my friend Jake, he was like, I was like, I'm going to describe, like last week I was like, I'm going to describe what's wrong with everything. And he was like, dude, I'm totally going to go smoke a bowl and then sit down and listen. And I don't smoke weed anymore, but I did, years ago. And, I liked it. But I stopped because I wanted to get married and have kids. And every time I thought about the, possibility of dealing with like a crisis involving a child, it just stressed, while being high, it just stressed me out. So I stopped smoking weed. But it's funny. My friend Jake was, who was like, oh, I'm going to smoke and listen to you. He smokes, starts listening to me, gets distracted, goes and starts making, food, and then just like forgot that I was talking, which is fine. Overall, the topic of this video is based on people that get bothered, mad by new theories that challenge them or have their new ideas. For anyone joining, thank you, Chris, for doing that. Chris is on top of helping me out always. I appreciate it a lot. Everything that I forget, Chris remembers. Hello, Nirot. Is this someone you know, or is this just a synchronicity? It's like heart and brain. I don't remember what we were talking about when you said that, Bitcoin Bear. What is the purpose of hotness then? Hotness is to get you to move in subjectivity, in relativity. Someone is only hot for a specific period of time because you have to do something about that in that moment. You can't have children with somebody when they're 85 years old. Even though they're still beautiful, they're not hot anymore. The hotness is meant to motivate us to start having children. That's the point of hotness. And it's meant to incentivize you to pair up in that at that point, and that point is always in time, and it's in space-time because it's in time, and therefore it's relativistic. But marriage is an eternal structure, and you can admire somebody's beauty forever, but like that hotness is meant to get you to want to have sex and pair up. What is the yes, irrelevant coincidence. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Beauty is inside, hotness is outside. Beauty is not just inside. Beauty is inside and outside, but hotness is subjective and beauty is objective. That's the difference. Beauty is eternal, and hotness is it's limited. It's not. What's the opposite of eternal? Besides limited, it's like it's just limited. It's not infinite, and it's not eternal. Eternal is just like infinite in time. Infinity in time is just eternal. So like beauty is infinite and hotness is finite. That's what it is. Hotness is finite. Your theory is contained in my art. Good. That means that your art contains truth. Cause and constraint. The answer is the question. Yes. The answer is the question. It's not the answer is the question. Fundamentally, a better way of putting it is the answer is the questioner. That's the answer. Blessoteric. I have no idea what that means, but I like it. Like blessings. Blessoteric. I like that. That's cool. Temporal. Yeah, it's in temporal. I was talking about the music with that girl saying she doesn't want a theory of everything. Heart and brain was a metaphor for how men and women need each other but have different roles. Yeah, exactly. Emotion versus thought. Emotion can't exist without thought, and thought can't exist without emotion, because emotions drive you, and thoughts. It's like emotions are the gas in the gas tank, and also your foot on the pedal. But then thoughts is the steering wheel, like in the manipulation of the steering wheel, and the perception of everything in the road. Notice that it's inside and outside. It's like it's the same pattern. It's like you need your foot on the pedal, and you need gas in the gas tank. And when it comes to like maneuvering or thought, you need to perceive the environment around you, and you need the ability to manipulate yourself in that environment. So like this is the inside-outside aspect of this, which is why that I have that binary triality, which is 6. It's because there's a triality observed from the inside looking out and a triality observed from the outside looking in. And that's why you get 6. So, I mean, it's just fascinating. Like, I don't criticize women for not being able to understand this. Like, you have to understand, if you understand this theory, then you understand why you can't do that. You also understand why, like, everybody, even in politics, who's like, oh, women are just not what they used to be. They're not, modest and such. And it's like, that's not their fault. It's all of our faults, but it's men's responsibility to fix it. And if it's not, if you get stuck in this idea of like, well, why not? Why isn't it equal? It's like, guys, this is gonna fall to the tragedy of the commons, where it's everybody's job, so it's actually nobody's job. It's like, if you can't define someone's role, then you can't hold them accountable. And it is men's job to lead, so it is their responsibility to fix the problems between men and women. It's their responsibility to understand why Sabine Hassenfelder doesn't want our theory of everything in her inbox at all, because she won't understand it. So don't send it to her. And like, maybe we won't be part of her song, but that's fine. I don't need to be part of her song. We can just watch it, and we'll probably watch it again at some point, because it was so funny and so true. Like, all these theories of everything come from men. Why did the Quran come from a man? Why did the Torah come from a man? Why did the gospel come from a man? Because these are all theories of everything. And theories of everything come from people who can detach and see the entirety of the tree looking down, not people who are attached to the tree, which is flowers, like women. Word. Yes, word. Coaches get fired. It's their responsibility, not the players. Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to work. Unfortunately, that's not the way it works. Unfortunately, in companies, people are like, "Oh yeah, we're paying him more because he's got more responsibility." But actually, when shit goes wrong, we're just gonna say, "Oh, it was so and so's fault below me." This is actually like how it ends up being. I think a lot about like what's the objective structure of a company, because I haven't really put too much in. Like, I haven't defined that so much yet, even though I have defined like government, castes, marriage roles, things like that in my theory. Company is not one that I've really like understood much yet. When I left my last company, it's become increasingly obvious to me, because then I got to see it from the inside and from the outside, that they were becoming like, and this isn't anything against PragerU, this is a universal critique of all companies, is that as you grow, eventually, they seem to lose the ability to be conscious and like pursue a goal. And this is starting to become true of PragerU. And I started there when it was like very much like a startup. I remember like the CEO was like, "Oh, we're a family here," and it did seem like that at the time. I will say, I hate that narrative now, and every company says that. So this is, again, not a critique of PragerU. Every company says that. "Oh, we're at the Jack in the Box family." It's like, is Jack in the Box really family? Because they'll dump you on your ass as soon as like, they don't need you. And that's the point, is the family doesn't do that. When you're inconvenient, family's job is to help. That's not the job of a company. So I'm not criticizing companies. Their job, when you are hampering them, is to get rid of you. So, that's fine. But don't call it a family if it's not a family. We need to realize it's not a family. But I realized as we grew that like, we just weren't as innovative anymore. We got stuck in narratives. Hypocrisy started to become more common. And Eric Weinstein talks about, the ego, the embedded growth obligation due to everybody's like individual desires to keep their position or get a higher salary. And it's like, it all sums to just a beast system. But also another thing that happens is that when a company grows, because I was like, what's the if the ego always exists, which it does, then what's the objective point though? Because I always want to search for objectivity. What's the line where it goes from, a mind that's coherent and able to think to unable to think, and it's just a chicken with its head cut off chasing, the next lollipop. And the line is when it grows bigger it grows beyond the ability for the people at the very top and the people at the very bottom to be in constant communication to the point where the information that's shared between them is acted on. Not just like, "Oh, you gave me that advice and I hear you, but I'm not going to do anything about it ever." That's not actually like a coherent thinking mind. But once it grows beyond the people at the top, intrinsically, organically being in touch with the people at the very bottom and them responding to each other in real time, then it loses its ability to adapt and move and maneuver and think. And this is true of every single one that exists. And it's true of society too. It's like somebody, Lex Friedman was like, do you think that they asked Eric Weinstein, he was like, do you think that there's alien life? Like, do you think that the government is hiding alien life? And Eric Weinstein was like, I don't know if a government exists. And it's a very good point. He was like, what makes you think that those two people who are supposed to be working collaboratively together have ever collaborated and have ever communicated in any way that was constructive and goal-oriented? The reality is that at this point, they don't have shared goals. Everybody has their own ego or embedded growth obligations, and it's caused a disconnect of mind, and that is the problem with our government, and it's the problem with companies that grow beyond a certain point, every single one of them. And the only things that you can do from there is posture to the beast and, respond in either fear or chasing of profits and stability. But it's just important to know. It's like, you can't get mad at Twitter for being insane. There's no way for it to be fixed. You cannot be mad at even PragerU for starting to lose, its way a little bit and just go more towards just being politically reactionary instead of following the goal of really helping people make sense of the world. It's grown too big. It's not because the people there have even had their world views changed or anything. It's just the people at the top are no longer able to organically keep up with the people at the bottom. And this is this is basically the equivalent to your mind no longer having one part of it communicating with the other. And that's what happened. And as soon as I left PragerU, I was able to see it from backup perspective, and I was really grateful for that. Actually, I was like, wow, that answered my question that I've had for a year of what's the objective point that causes this disconnect? And it's when, and it's different for every company, but it's the same point consistently across every company. So I'm not saying that, it's this many employees or it's this many employees. That's dependent upon the structures and everything and how, and also management and all kinds of stuff. It's why is Tesla able to Tesla, because of the, sheer will of the person at the very top right now, is able to actually avoid this, even though it's a huge company. But it won't be able to avoid that forever. Eventually it will cave to this, and it's at a different, amount of employees for every company, because each company has a different structure and has different leadership. But it's always the same thing. It's always when the people at the top and the people at the bottom are no longer communicating to the point where action is being taken by what is being communicated. My startup is like the Lord of the Flies. You're going to have to tell me more about that, because I don't know what that means, but it sounds cool. A bunch of men, or, masculine energy. That isn't very important too, by the way. I think Jordan Peterson was right when he said, we don't know if women and men can work together. I don't think that we can, to be honest. I don't know how much I'm going to talk about this right now, because this is something that I am a little bit concerned that it might be, the cause of being pulled, censored. That doesn't mean I'm not going to talk about it. It just means you got to pick where you talk about things. So we're probably going to have Patreon only or website only videos where it's uploaded there and it's not, and it's discussing concepts that maybe are more controversial than what YouTube would be willing to tolerate. But, essentially I will say this. Women value peace over truth. Men value truth over peace. And men also will sacrifice themselves for the sake of, helping women. That's not a good thing in a company. I know that from experience. And, and and women will sacrifice the truth for the sake of peace, as by nature. Like, this causes disconnect in our social media. This causes disconnect in government. It causes disconnect in, our companies. But it's interesting. Paulina, my fiance, I talk to her about all this stuff all the time. And once she was talking to this person on Facebook, and I told her, I was like, I don't really argue with women anymore, unless I'm trying to just like see how they're going to react, more so than like trying to actually convince them of something. And because it's not fair to them. Almost, it's like they're not designed to handle that. It's not because I don't think that they're smart enough to deal with it. It's because they can't by nature take a random, like, go and fight a random man without losing it. Even like people who are as confrontational as Candace Owens will lose it in certain circumstances, where, like, I saw once she called Brett Weinstein a creep in a conversation that was not creepy, but it's what it does is it's that her nature is like, oh my gosh, there's this man that's actually starting to, like, be right, and he's not my husband, and so I don't trust him, and I am going to just become defensive. And like, the easy way for women to become defensive today is to say, oh, don't be creepy. It's because no man wants to be a creep. They'll call us an asshole and we'll be like, okay. But like, if they call you creep, you don't want to be called a creep. So it's very effective, and their nature knows it, their instincts know it. But it was just funny to see, and it was very, like, confirming, because Candace is one of the most capable women that I know when it comes to, like, debate. And but even she couldn't handle it. It wasn't even debate. It was just like a discussion. But my girlfriend, my fiance, was talking with this girl on Facebook, and they got into a like a little Facebook debate. And Paulina never gets into Facebook debates, and she doesn't like confrontation at all. And I was like, watch, I'm gonna comment, and I'm telling you, like, I don't argue with women, but you're gonna see, like, the breakdown of this. And I went and I commented, and the girl responds, and she's like, oh, well, last thing I need is a man mansplaining to me, who I don't even know, pointing out the obvious. And I literally just said something where she said, what, should we just, like, not censor people on the internet who are saying things that are wrong? And I was like, all I said was, people have said things that are wrong since the beginning of time. Life goes on. That's literally all I said. And she was like, some man comes in here pointing out the obvious. And I literally responded to her. I was like, listen, and she was honest. She was like, I don't make it a habit of communicating with random men online. I wasn't random. It was on my page, I think. And or it was on my fiance's page. I was communicating with my fiance. And, but still, like, she pointed it out. Exactly. You gotta give women credit. They really do. They're not stupid, and men who say that are wrong. But she was like, I don't make a habit of communicating with random men online. And she's right. And I said, you know what? You're right. I respect your rules. I'm done with this conversation. You and Paulina can continue it between you guys. Because that's the way it's supposed to be. But this is also why we're having censorship everywhere. And is because, like, if you can't handle confrontation and you value peace over truth, and getting to the truth requires challenge, and challenge is confrontation, then the way to do this is to shut down confrontation. Look at my videos on my channel, because I'm a deep thinker. I also believe in God. Good. I might do that. Love 24/7. But yeah, like, this, we gotta, like, understand these structures. But this happens in companies too. It's causing the breakdown of mind, is because we can no longer talk about truth. Like, I'll tell you guys one. I know we kind of went away from, like, why is everybody pissed off at my theory, but maybe we'll, like, comment in the Discord and that we're live, and we'll see if anybody shows up after this last little anecdote. But at a job that I was at, you can insinuate what it was. There were moments, there was, like, here's an instance. Like, I had gotten, like, an incredible review. And then due to mentioning something in my review when I was asked about something, oh my gosh, this is kind of a story actually, and this is important, all the details are important because it does have to do with men and women, and I'm going to talk about like how we work, and this is the problem. At my last job, and this is true of all companies, it's not just PragerU. So this isn't a rip on PragerU. At all. Like, they're better than most companies. That should be clear, but this is a male-female dynamic, okay? And a universal one. I had a superior that was a woman who I really like. Very nice, intelligent, hard worker, everything good. But she had like made mistakes, and when she had first started, and she was like afraid to tell our boss, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, how am I going to tell so and so?" And I was like, "I've got this, guys. Don't worry." And well, I didn't say guys, but I looked at her and I was like, "I've got this. Don't worry." And I went up to him and I was like, "Mistakes were made, but like we've fixed it and it's fine." He was like, "Well, how'd the mistakes be made?" And I was like, "They were just made. Don't worry about it." And I was protecting her. And there's no like chemistry or anything like that there. I just am a man, and like good men have an intrinsic desire to protect women. And when they see a damsel in distress, I guess it doesn't have to be somebody you want to sleep with or anything. And I wanted to just, make it so that she didn't feel upset. And I shouldn't have done that because I essentially like made it so that she didn't have to confront her mistake. And then time went on and we had reviews, and I got a great review. And I had mentioned, listen, like those mistakes a while back, like, because they had asked how's so-and-so doing, and I said, those mistakes that were made a while back, like, were due to, nervousness, but they're actually doing much better. And that was it. And I left for the day. And then that person had their review. I'm guessing something came up, and because they responded, like, my review was done by that woman, essentially, and it was a great review. But literally overnight, where there was no communication, and I'm not even joking, I left for the day, I came in the next day, I was accused, I guess, of like not doing work and going and watching videos all day long. This is totally untrue, and like my work reflected that, but and this is not like, remember, this is not me complaining about anything. I'm just describing why men and women working together breaks down a cohesive structure. That's the point of this. It's not to slander anyone. It's not to, attack any company, because this is something that happens in every company, and it's something that happens with every man and every woman. And I hold nothing. I don't love that woman, but like I like that woman a lot. Like still to this day, there are people at PragerU that I do love, but but this person had said something that just, the details they don't really matter, but it was untrue, supported by data, and it was also impossible for the person to have known if it was true even. And I had a office mate who was also a woman, and I do like love that woman. Like it was a very good friend of mine, and I had come in the next day after my review, and she's crying. And I was like, "What's wrong?" And she was like, "I'm so sorry, Tyler. I'm so sorry." I was like, "Why are you sorry?" And she was like, so-and-so and so-and-so came in here and asked me if you just watch YouTube videos all day long. And I was like, "Well, what did you say?" And she was like, "I said yes." And I was like, "Why did you say yes if that's not true?" And she was like, "Well, remember yesterday you like showed me that one thing?" And I was like, "You mean that moment yesterday where I played like 5 seconds of an audio only podcast?" Because I always listen to podcasts when I'm working. That's what I do. They listen to music, and I listen to podcasts, and that's just it kind of like is like white noise to me. Problem with music is I start focusing on the replicative patterns in the music. So I need something that doesn't replicate. That's why I listen to podcasts. And so I can tune it out. I actually can't tune out music because I start noticing the replication in the music. But she was like, I told her, I was like, the 5 seconds of an audio-only podcast? And she was like, oh yeah, you're right. And then, so now I've had 2 things happen where women have said things that aren't true out of reaction. And I defended the one woman in the initial whole like thing that led to this entirety of events that played out over 6 months 6 months earlier, and then now we're still dealing with this. And I'm a slave to my own nature too, just like they are. And again, I looked at this woman who again, not criticism of her at all. I really respect the fact that I walked in and she immediately told me what she did, which means she knew that it was not what she... Like, if she thought that I was just wasting time all day and not doing my work, which, first of all, if I did that, guys, I was in charge of their entire marketing budget. It's tens of millions of dollars. If I was screwing up and not doing my job, they would have known years ago. But the fact that she was crying and told me immediately what she had done, I hadn't even put my stuff down yet, means she knew that what she had said was wrong. And not because she felt loyal to me, but because she knew it was wrong. And I, though, was a slave to my nature, just like she was a slave to her nature. She lied not because she's evil or had any malice. That she regretted it immediately. But she was valuing preserving peace. So when 2 people walk in and ask a woman, is this true? And their mind is like, oh, to preserve the peace, I'm going to agree. And she agreed. And then, they value peace over truth. And then I looked at her, though, and men want to protect women. This is not good in the work environment. It's good when there's a war. It's not good in the work environment. And I tried to protect her now. And I was like, listen, you either have to go in and tell so-and-so, our boss, that what you said wasn't true and you have to take it back. Or you can tell me to do it and I will go apologize on your behalf and say that you said something that was false and that if they want to talk to you about it further, they can. And she was like, okay, I'm going to think more about it. And I was like, okay, well, you have an hour to think about it because I don't want decisions made in any way and for this to get run up the chain for any reason, if considering the fact that it's false. And then an hour later, I was like, so, did you come to a decision? And she was like, you can do it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go do it. And I went up to our boss, and I was like, who's a man? And I was like, so-and-so just admitted that what they did, what they said was not true, and they said it out of panic. You can go talk to them about it, if but I'm here because they were embarrassed and they didn't want to, do this. So I'm here, on their behalf. But you can go talk to them if you want. My boss looked straight at me, and I'm not even criticizing him for this because he's doing the exact same thing that I had just done in not making her go take responsibility for her own actions. I had to go and save her. It's the second woman that I've saved in this whole process, and it's just both of them are throwing me under the bus unconsciously. And it did have impacts on my standing. So it was unfortunate. It wasn't just funny, but it is funny now looking back. And but I explained, how is it that if you're star evidence in a case, this is what I said to my boss, the only witness in a case who said, oh yeah, I saw that person murder somebody, comes forward and is like, actually I lied. I didn't see it. I'm sorry. And then you have no other witnesses. And the only other person that has, started this whole process had a feeling that this was happening. And that's all it could be because it was physically impossible for them. They were in a different room. And when you walk by, you can't see what's on anybody's computer or anything. So even if it was true, which it wasn't, it would have been impossible for them to know. If you just use logic, you can realize this. his logic was cast aside, and he just looks at me and he's like, well, I think they're good workers. And I was like, yeah, they are great workers. Like, I'm not criticizing them for being bad workers. That's not the point. It's logically impossible for, the original accuser to have seen what she could have seen, and she admitted that she never saw anything. She just had a feeling. I don't know why you go to somebody based on a feeling. Probably because it had come up that, they maybe had made mistakes 6 months earlier that I took credit for in review. And I don't know. But like, as a man, you should be able to be like, okay, I get it. There's no way for them to have known. And then now the other person who would have known, the only person that would have known, has said that it's not true. You gotta, at that point, case dismissed, okay? If you don't dismiss that case, you are a shit judge. Or you're a man who's a slave to his nature and is trying to protect the women in the situation just because they're women. And you're a good man and you want to protect them. And so that's exactly what he ended up doing. It was impossible for him to see past his own nature to protect women. It was impossible for me to see past my own nature to protect these women. And it was impossible for them to tell the truth because it was against their nature. If it created, a division in narrative. This is why it's like there's such a collectivist mindset behind like the feminine mentality is it's like believe all, things like this. It's just collectivistic. And that's perfect and good, beautiful in the right circumstances. But in an unregulated environment, unsegregated environment, unordered environment is really the right word, then it doesn't work. And the reality is that the objective structure of a human being is whatever replicates more human beings, and that is a marriage. It is a man and a woman. It's not just a man. It's not just a woman. In order to have a complete view, you need a woman and a man, and they need to trust each other completely, which means needs to be your spouse. You can be honest with your spouse. You can't be honest with a random girl on Twitter. And she can't believe you. And she shouldn't believe you. Why should she believe a random man? She shouldn't. It doesn't even matter if you make sense. You're scary, historically. And she should run away. But we are slaves to our nature. And it's causing a disconnection in our ability to think. Even in companies. I saw it happen again and again. I was responsible for it, though. Women were responsible for it. My boss was responsible for it. Everybody was guilty in this. I'm not blaming anyone. That's how you know that this is true. It's I'm not oh, these women. Or this person. Or my boss. It's I failed, and then I made the same exact mistake again, and then my, superior failed, and my coworker who shared space with me failed, and then the boss of all of us failed. And it was all because women were trying to preserve consistency of narrative, which is peace, and then the men were trying to protect the women. And it resulted in it was brought up as a reason why I didn't get promotion when I asked for one once. So I'm serious. It causes problems. It's not just funny. I'm not saying it's the reason I'm not there, but I am saying that it cost me a promotion, and that's shitty. But I'm not alone in that, and it's not restricted to nobody was at fault. Really, nobody was being malicious. Everybody was a slave to their nature. And Stefan Molyneux did a stream about men and women once, and it was just the most brilliant thing I'd ever heard. And he described once he had a test when he was a kid, and you had to have a pencil. And if you didn't have a pencil, then you couldn't take the test, and you automatically failed. And you only had one pencil. And the girl behind him tapped him on the shoulder and was like, "Do you have a pencil?" And he was like, "Yeah, here." And he gave her the pencil. His only pencil. He failed the test and tried to write the answers by pricking his finger on the side of the desk in blood. That is how much we are slaves to our natures regarding men and women, because they are us. We are one. We can't escape each other. And you can't just I'm more aware of this stuff than almost anybody else. And at this point, I am not confident that if this all went down again, knowing what I know now, I still wouldn't do exactly the same mistake. I would make the same mistake. I would want to protect the woman from being, upset. And then later on, I'll be like, what the hell did I do? And so this is the problem, though. This is why you need to change the structure, and you can't just do trainings of like how we, are. Even if you're like, guys, women value truth over peace, and men value peace, women value peace over truth, and men value truth over peace, and this makes men more likely to cause fights and makes women more likely to lie. And it's like, you did trainings like they do on racial biases or whatever like that. You can't do that. I would do the same thing, and I am super aware of these problems, and I'd still make the same mistake. So, it's just important we realize, like, we are breaking the universal mind if we're not structured objectively, which is why Sentient Singularity Theory is here, to tell us how to do that, and to tell us why we need to do that. And also why it's beautiful. Like, it's not ugly to be like, you know what, maybe we need some kind of gender segregation in certain parts of our society in order to actually, like, maybe it's true that in order for men and women to communicate again, we actually need to stop talking to each other in, random conversations. That if that's true, then it's beautiful. It's way more beautiful than what we've got going on now. And I remember I said all this stuff to like everybody around me, and they were like, I don't know, so-and-so's a great worker. Like, you're not getting this. Obviously they're great workers, otherwise they wouldn't be employed. But they're also women, and we're also men, and like, we're all slaves to our natures. We're slaves to each other. But the thing is, for men, that's important is that we say what's true, because we can't always act correctly in the wrong circumstances. We have to put ourselves into the right circumstances in order to make it easier to act correctly, because we do have instincts. And it's men's responsibility to lead, because it is their ability to see the objective truth. And that also means it's their responsibility to say the objective truth, even if it means that it threatens their employment. It's a good thing right now that I am not, full-time employed by anybody, and I can get on here and riff about things that out of context would be totally controversial, but in context are actually beautiful and grace-giving and, like, wonderful things. It's like, how else could you, like, if you didn't understand this, if you were me, you would look at those women, and especially the original one, and be like, you bitch. But if you understand this, then you're not going to do that, because you're like, she's as much a slave in this as I am, and she's actually like a really good person, and just, is a person, but is also a woman. And if you were, some onlooker, and you were like looking at me making the same mistake multiple times, you'd be like, you idiot. But like, when you realize what's actually happening, that, you can't escape it. You're like, wow, actually, I understand exactly what happened there, and like, maybe we all need to start saying the truth so we can restructure in a way that helps everybody. And like, that's beauty. It's beautiful. Nothing against PragerU. That is what I described happens every day at every company in the world in which men and women are not segregated by gender. Like, it's just true. Maybe, I'm not going to get into this, but that stuff, but like, I've gotten into it already. I'm just not going to relate it to like an individual instance, because like, you got to have limits. Like, there's a limit where you're just like, you got to let people figure out the truth and you say the truth, but like, let them figure out how to apply it in every circumstance. You don't have to point out everywhere where it applies. Sometimes, but not every time. Because sometimes it can actually hurt people. What I just described, it's not going to hurt anyone. Maybe those people will listen to it, and hopefully they'll be like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Or they'll be like, wow, Tyler's a dick. But That's only if they don't hear the entirety of it. But there are also certain circumstances where if you say something and you say it relating to a certain circumstance, like, it's gonna just cause unnecessary strife when you can just actually just let, like, things, work themselves out. Or it would be obvious who I was referring to in that, and I don't want it to be obvious who I'm referring to. I can tell you, about my superior and our boss and, the woman that I shared a room with. Like, you don't know who those people are, and it's not easy to figure that out. You won't be able to figure it out. And I don't want you to be able to figure it out. They know, but I don't need other people to know. The next thing that I was going to say would have been obvious who I was talking about. I'm not going to do that. So, just have grace for everybody. There's a lot of, like, anger at women because women are, like, not being modest, and they're kind of distracting men from all kinds of things with Instagram pictures and stuff like that. But also know that, like, we're all slaves to our nature, and the way that we break it is for men to start saying what is true. That's the start. It's not to just go and start behaving, differently, even in the same context. That's impossible. You have to change the context, and that starts by describing the problems with the current context. You seem well-intentioned. I am well-intentioned. And by the way, like, I'm also human. You don't think I'm not sincerely pissed at every time that I've ever been wronged, or feel like I've been wronged in a company, no matter what the company is? And that's happened at every company I've worked for. But that's not the point here. Like, the point is, with this was something where I just backed up, and at first, when this happened, I was so mad. But over time, as I realized what was going on, I just felt for everyone and realized that there was no escape. And, like, there are times where people just wrong you, and you don't air everybody's dirty laundry when that happens. Sometimes you just got to be like, you know what, I'm grateful for the good that I got from that place, or that group, or that person, or whatever it is, and move on. And but if it's going to help people for me to talk about this, which I think that it would, at this point, because I can describe what's actually happening, and it's not blaming anyone or calling anybody, malicious, then that's when you actually talk about it. Like, I'm not going to talk about the times that people have done me wrong, and actually done it because, like, I don't know, they chose to, lie in order to look out for themselves or something like that. I can't even think of an instance where that's happened. I'm sure it has, like, at some point in my career of working at many, not many, but multiple companies. But, that's not the point of any of this. You don't have to tell the sins of everybody to the world. But you do have to say what's true universally. And that is that men and women are not good at working together. Even though you're like, no, actually, we're a great team. Didn't you see what we did? It's like, you don't know what you would have achieved if you were in a segregated circumstance, like a gender-segregated circumstance. You can't say that, oh, well, we worked great together because we accomplished that. It's like, that looks like great work compared to other people's work, but you're only competing against other people where they're also not gender-segregated. It's like, what would happen if they weren't? You don't know. We don't know. I mean, once I will say this, and then we'll go back to, like, why everybody hates my theory. But I had this idea, this theory, years ago. And it was when I realized that women value peace over truth and men value truth over peace. I had this idea that, like, political discussions were very different when it was only men. But there was no way to know now. There's no video from when that was happening. But, like, I had a theory that was true. That we would see something that we never had seen. And then Jesse Lee Peterson, who some people think is an idiot, but is actually brilliant genius, put on this men's only conference. And it was a conference regarding, like, for men. And, those exist, but I had predicted that you would see honesty even at scale when it was only men. But I'd never seen a room with more than 10 people in it where it was only men. You think about last time you saw more than 10 people in a room and all of them were one gender. Can you think about it? It's probably not common. But I went, and this was hundreds of people. It was like 200 people in a room. And he literally, it wasn't just male attendees, he made his women's staff leave the room before the event started. And I was like, holy crap, this man's doing things differently than I've ever seen. And they knew, the women knew, because they had seen, they'd worked for him long enough to know what was going on. And guys, the grace and honesty that I saw in that room regarding some of the most complicated, difficult, embarrassing conversations and topics and controversial things that you could talk about it was so beautiful. I can't even tell you, like, my theory was confirmed. It was the only time I've seen it. Everyone was honest with each other because nobody was posturing to women. No men were slaves to their nature, and where some guys like, oh yeah, guys, we gotta admit, like, this is what we say behind closed doors. This is what this is how men are. This is how the world is. That it's like nobody was then the guy who jumps in, who's being dishonest but doesn't even realize that he's being dishonest because he's posturing to the women. He just thinks he's saving the women, just like what I was doing with, like, taking responsibility for the mistakes of other people. That guy jumps in and he white knights, is what people call it. It's like white knighting. It's like, don't white knight here. It's like, those guys can't even help it. And it's not bad to want to stick up for women, but you can't have a non-segregated environment and not expect white knighting. And you also can't have a non-segregated environment and expect honesty. And, I saw that, though, in Jesse Lee Peterson's conference. And I went up to him afterwards and I was like, dude, you confirmed a theory that I had, and the fact you made even your women's staff leave the room. And I looked around and I was like, because I realized everybody was being honest to a degree that made no sense. No sense. Like, I heard people admit things you would never, ever see a man admit publicly, where they thought women were going to see it, or at least in real time. And I was like, it was the most amazing thing. And then I looked around the room, and because I was like, maybe there's no women. And I looked down around the room, and there wasn't even the ushers that were women that were helping people find their seats. He had made them leave the room, and he was like, yeah, you have to make them leave the room in order to see what you just saw. And I was like, you're a genius! Like, you are such a genius. He is brilliant, that man. And that doesn't mean he's right about everything, but that was brilliant. That was like, the reality of genius is that it's not a level of IQ, it's not a person, it's a moment. Genius is a moment, and everybody has moments of genius, and everybody also has moments of stupidity. Stupidity is not a person or a level of IQ either. It's a moment. Everybody has a moment where they're like, oh my gosh, I did something really stupid. But everybody has a moment where they're like, holy crap, that was genius. Genius is a moment, so is stupidity. They're not people, and they're not levels of IQ or anything like that. But this was a moment of genius. Like, I could not believe the honesty that I saw. We need that again. Women need that. Like, if men are just going to lie to them because we're slaves to it, or that we won't allow the truth to be said because it might make them upset, it hurts them. It's not good for them. It hurts them. And same thing with women. It's like, if women are going to lie in order to preserve peace, but it actually hampers the truth from coming out because the context of everybody's social dynamics is not objectively correct, then what happens is that now we're screwed because we can't say what's true, and the truth is the most beautiful and most helpful thing that you can know. And it's no one's fault except our natures, but it is men's responsibility to fix it by saying, guys, like, and saying it with grace, not with like, guys, women are liars. It's like, no, they value peace over truth. And men are violent. You don't say that. It's like men are toxic. It's like, no, don't say that. Men value truth over peace. And in a subjective context, moving from a world of not so much truth to more truth is going to result in instability, and that is not peaceful. So that is, my rant on that. Very important that I said what I said regarding contexts, the personal context of the story. I think really shows that I'm not just saying this crap that I'm making up. It's like I've seen it multiple times, and I'm a victim of it because it's so true that I can't escape it. That's the point that I wanted to make. Politics. How do you feel about work? I feel like we are in a state where we're just toiling away from family. I think that the 9-to-5 corporate environment is anti-family.